I'm Daniel Francoeur. I've been in the spa business now for about over 25 years, and with Bode almost 20 years now, I believe.
I'm Aharon. I've been with Bode now 6-ish years.
I was in a completely different field before, but I had a piece of property that was way up in the country in Ottawa, a log house on 80 acres, and I knew somebody who was in the business who was very interested, trying to set something up on the property, thinking, oh, people should see this place, so on and so forth. And being somebody who's not a great silent partner, so I took a couple of courses, and before I knew it, I ended up opening my own spa on the property, and it was just history since then. And I just love it. I've never had a single day in the 20-some years where I hate going to work or I'm just dead at the end of the day. I just always just love being in this business. It's fantastic.
For me, I was also in something else before. I'm a certified high school teacher, but it's hard to find work being a teacher. So I kind of got tired of waiting tables and teaching part-time and not having anything permanent. So when I ran into Dan, I approached him asking, I'd like to sort of learn the industry and get into the treatment room. So slowly I was working there part-time, and then my clientele grew and I really enjoyed it. There's just something really satisfying about giving a service that has immediate tangible results and getting that immediate feedback of appreciation. So I stuck around.
It all came out of the fact that the spa that I ran over 20-some years ago out in the country was basically on 80 acres log house. It was predominantly for women. And then what ended up happening is women felt very comfortable about bringing their male counterparts, brothers, friends, so on and so forth. Average spas usually range between 4 to 8% male clientele. Mine, within about 6 months, grew to over 40% male clientele, just because they liked the setting, the way that things were set up, as well as because of being in a house situation, sort of that kind of ideal or style. Everything was in separate rooms. There was no open pedicure stations, no open areas of manicures and stuff. So men felt very, very comfortable. So we created an area called the men's zone. So they had their own waiting section, they had their own rooms. And then from there, I had the opportunity to buy a small business that was just a one-person show called Bode. And that was predominantly for men, and it was ability for me to be able to separate the two spas again, and then just have one that was running towards men. But everything I learned was from all those clients coming to us and asking us about male services.
So nowadays it's a lot of word of mouth, and it's also the internet, particularly Google, because we are a niche business. If you type in pedicure men, wax men, the second you put the word man, we're kind of the only game in town. So we're the first and second hits.
It also comes down to knowing your clientele. So when you think, most men literally are very quiet about self-care. They don't go around chatting up with their buddies or, even sometimes asking their partners and stuff. So it's a lot of self-looking. So they go online. So you have to know how your clientele already think.
We post every
2 days.
2 or 3 days we post regularly. So that if someone comes across our social media page, they can see that we are alive, we are active. That's a huge thing as well.
Men have a lot of foot problems.
Yeah.
It's when it comes down to, you have a lot of, and I don't know how many times I'll do a massage and you do something and you get it somewhere and then you see the feet and you're like, oh my God, I have to touch those. So even in our massage, believe it or not, when it comes down to doing their legs and the feet, the first thing that I teach my staff to do is already grab a can of DD cream and you put it on the feet while you're working on the legs. So by the time you get to the foot, it's nice and soft and you don't have to go over that kind of thing as you're going over their foot. So it sounds kind of funny, but that's where a lot of it comes from is you see the feet, and guys are very shy about their feet. And almost every guy comes in and says, oh, I have the most horrible feet. And then of course it's like, you don't get to see what I see on a regular day basis. And usually it's calluses. Guys who have calluses think their feet are horrible. It's a simple thing to fix. And when you start educating them and teaching them, it becomes a whole other thing. Also too, it's like, I call it, is like as soon as you've had your pedicure and you put your feet down, you take your first couple of steps, you're sold. Foot care is the last service that most men will book because they think it's useless, or as I put it in, men still associate nail care, if you want to put it that way, as big red drippy nails. So they're kind of scared of that kind of thing, but it's the first service they rebook out of percentage. And it's because once they understand it and they feel it, they're just blown away about not just the feeling, but the health benefits of having proper foot care.
When people call in asking, oh, I want to treat my guy to a spa or treat my dad to something, they've never been to a spa, what should I book them? The pedicure is usually the first thing that we recommend because A, it's immediate result, and like Dan said, they oftentimes are problems and they see and feel the difference immediately, so they're already happy and likely to want to come back. But also it's the least vulnerable, like you're literally just stripping your ankles and feet. You're not having to get naked in front of a stranger yet. So because it's not so vulnerable, I find it's a good service to recommend.
The first date visit.
Yes, the first date visit.
I love it.
That is years and years and years ago, and I can't even remember. So when it comes down to things of looking for anything for a spa, I sort of have a fictitious client in my head who's 6'4" and 300 and some pounds. So I picture them sitting in a chair, I picture them lying on a table, I picture them using our product. And in the beginning, so many products came out in skincare and everything else in tiny little bottles. So this giant man is trying to get a finger in a little bottle to use. Or the biggest thing with foot care, and it is an amazing line, and they first started off in World War I, predominantly for all the German soldiers and everything else like that. But the problem is it's done with an inclusive. So it means it's very greasy, it's very oily. You have a man who comes into your spa who's already trying, who wants to care for their feet, but now you've got to tell them that they have to put this greasy thing on their feet and then put on socks and go to bed at night. It ain't gonna work. So I took my fictitious client in my head and I saw them holding a can of shaving foam, putting on shaving foam, reaching and putting on their feet. It's something they understand, but the nice thing about it, as soon as it's done, it's dry. I can sell that to a guy. That's not a problem. I can recommend it. I don't even have to sell it. I can recommend it. And once they see me using it, it's a whole different story. And they touch their feet and it's dry, so they can walk across the floor right away. They're not slipping and sliding, having to do it at night, put on greasy. And the other one I joke about is the tincture. I'll even take it out because it's kind of funny when you talk about it with men, because anything to do with nail fungus comes in a bottle of nail polish and you're painting it on top of a nail to get under the nail. And now I just turn around and tell the guy it's a mini bottle of WD-40. It's just missing the straw. And all of a sudden they get it and they understand. But the other thing is, even if you're somebody who has mobility issues and you're large, it's easy to simply just go down and squeeze and then come back up for your breath. So it's something that almost anybody can do. And it's
not embarrassing.
It's not embarrassing, but over feminized with the fact that it's in a nail polish bottle. It's like a lot of the products that are out there haven't factored in that everybody has fungus. It's not just women.
I think we just covered it.
It's covered, but it simply comes down to it works. Okay. So every product that we carry here, because again, it's getting to my staff. Again, as a business, we don't have pressured sales quotas and all this kind of stuff. We sell because it makes sense. So part of that is you also have to encourage your staff on why would you recommend these things. It's easy to recommend anything that works. So everything that we carry works. I don't carry stuff that doesn't work because it's just going to sit on my shelf and I've just wasted money.
Tincture, number one.
Yeah.
And then
Rough
after
skin.
that, rough skin would be number two, because again, fungus is very common in men. And then I'd say cracked heels probably are number three. Because a lot of guys don't paddle their own feet at home, they don't do a lot of pedicure work, they wear bad shoes, or they only wear sandals and flip-flops in the summertime, work boots, etc. So they get a lot of cracking. So I would say tincture number one, rough skin number two, cracked skin number three. We have lots.
Shall I take a seat?
Sure.
I think the biggest one is know who your clients that you're going after, and then pretty well every question after that you have to always bring it back to that one. So what area of town are you going to be in? How are you going to market yourself? What kind of services are you going to be offering? It all comes back to who is your client that you're going after. And I think the biggest one, and one of the reasons why we ended up opening in Toronto, coming from Ottawa after so many years, is the fact that every time I came down here and I taught other staff or other businesses how to do it, and they closed down within a year and a half. No spa for men has lasted in Toronto more than 2 years. And why is one of the biggest problems with that is they bite off more than they can chew. They think they're the only game in town, so they open big. And rent in Toronto is not cheap. So I was actually helping out spas that were spending $8,000 to $13,000 a month on rent.
Because they had like 8 treatment rooms, plus a barber area, plus.
So when we started here in Toronto, I know it sounds funny, but we started with a studio, moved to 2 rooms.
One room.
Yeah, studio's 1 room, and then we moved to 2 rooms, and now we have our own space. And the way things are going, we'll probably have different locations now here in Toronto as well.
You asked earlier, like, what does Bode stand for? What does it mean? Nowadays, it actually stands as an acronym. And the B in Bode, which is the first and most important letter for us, is building relationships. If you're not building relationships, you don't have a successful long-term business.